This is Empty the Bench with Tom Albano.
Let's see, you don't want to be criticized? Isn't that a bit of a problem when you're a public figure and you're always in the public eye?
Nick Morgasen.
But he's not on the field producing. When you're producing on the field, then you get away with a lot of nonsense. Look at Antonio Brown when he was on the field as a star. No one batted an eye.
And Nick Federa.
It's the NFL. It's a different world. The outsized influence they have on what the programming is and what it's going to be up to the fucking second.
Empty the Bench starts now.
How about them Cowboys? I want Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going to win the Super Bowl.
No, Nick. You didn't do it right. It's like this. I'm at them Cowboys. We're going to win a Super Bowl. I'm at them Cowboys. We're America's team.
I tried. Welcome to episode 164 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Tom Albano, Nick Morgasen. Well, let's just go behind the curtain. We tried to record this a first time, and then Nick was kind of sick. Well, he might have been sick from a move that almost happened in free agency, but we'll get to that.
Maybe it did happen. You know, at the time we're recording this at a time now, baseball has just seemed to be blowing up, so you never know. Maybe this certain move has happened, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. All right, now that all the plugs are out of the way. Big show. A lot of MLB news. Yes, I said that. We're leading off with MLB hot stove news.
Oh my God, it's a miracle.
I mean, Rob Manfred's kind of destroyed the whole sport, so we're not really immersed in the world of baseball. But I think you said
sorry. Did you say his name?
Hey, it's kind of good we went back. It's good we went back, because now we get that reference in.
When you say his name, he comes a calling.
That's true. That's right. But we have a lot of moves to get into, and actually, I just saw another shocking move with money, which we'll get to in a few minutes.
We're going to talk about some of the big free agency moves, from Jacob DeGrom to Justin Verlander to Trea Turner, and potentially somebody here in New York who might be heading out west. Maybe they already have moved out west. We don't know at this point.
Well, Nick will be very unhappy. I mean, maybe that's why he was sick. He didn't really want to see it happen. Also, NFL news. Odell Beckham Jr. may be out till 2023.
So maybe nobody signs him after all. We also got Antonio Brown. Baker Mayfield has a new home. And Nick, he's going to be a starting quarterback for the rest of 2022.
That's a scary thought in everyone's minds. Anyone who bet on that he was going to be a starter, put your hand down. You're lying.
Okay. Can I show you another scary sight?
Okay.
Broncos country, let's rock. Broncos country, let's rock.
Don't you miss me? You had to do the Broncos country let's ride last week.
No, I know. Oh my God.
and that's not to say the banner is being replaced. But this is what happens when I am home from work one day, sick and bored. But yes, Broncos country, let's ride. Another edition of the Denver Broncos punching their fans in the dick and losing in another horrifying choke job. And Russell Wilson reportedly has lost the Broncos locker room, which means, Nick, this is two quarterbacks with the last name of Wilson in the last month or so that have lost their respective locker rooms.
Hey, you know what? Just add one more Wilson and you have a law firm. Anyway, my point what I was going to say is that whole locker room is a joke. Russell Wilson, what'd you say? He had 8 touchdowns through 12 games.
Something like that.
And our favorite hack of a coach says it's all gossip, end quote.
Ooh. Also, Nick, we're going to end the show. See, it's not all baseball and football. We're going to end the show, Nick, with you your favorite sport, your anger, and your two favorite people in the whole world.
Oh,
LeBron
goody.
James and Kyrie Irving.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Congratulations, Dick
For-
Reeds.
For a second, I thought you turned into Marv Albert.
Well, that works too. Hey, I like Marv Albert. Yes.
All right. For full context, there will be no rapid rundown this week. There's just way too much that we have to get into, and we're kind of afraid we might hit another 2-hour show this week. So,
Well, taking out the rapid rundown might help it, but
yeah,
we'll
taking
see.
out the rapid rundown might help it. Not to mention we've already done 30 minutes of actually. Take the time that we were doing our first attempt and just sitting around and talking. It's been a lot more than 30 minutes to an hour. So we already got a lot we got to get through. We will give you, however, our Thursday night game, because obviously we are not going to be with you till past Thursday night, because you can join me and Nick, hopefully the other Nick, on another special crossover with Johnny Montalbano and Hank and Victor on Football Friday. So we will give our picks there.
Yeah, so all right, let's get going. We have a lot to get into. So the MLB winter meetings are in San Diego as we speak. A lot of money has been thrown around, and by that I mean a lot. So first move right off the docket, which we're not really surprised, and Nostradamus made a appearance in this situation. Nostradamus
is back.
He's back.
He's back. I have returned, and Nostradamus has also returned. Where's my horn? There it is.
Yes, so Jacob DeGrom has officially signed with the Texas Rangers on a 5-year, $185 million deal with a conditional 6-year option, which somehow balloons this deal to a $222 million deal. Mind you, he's 30. Yes, mind you, he's 34 years old.
So, here's the thing. Nick, did I not say the Rangers were desperate?
Oh, yeah, you said they were desperate.
Actually, let me correct myself. It's twofold. Number one, they are desperate. What I'm going to do for you, Mr. Morgasen, I'm going to read you the depth chart, the rotation, the potential rotation that the Rangers were facing as of the end of 2021. So obviously Jake Odorizzi is no longer with them. However, John Gray, Martin Perez, Dane Dunning, Cole Reagans, and Glenn Otto.
I only know one of those guys, John Gray, and I don't think he's on the roster anymore.
So basically, your reaction to me reading those names.
Yeah, I mean, it's desperation. It's clear desperation. You know what the Rangers ownership said? Well, we have a new stadium and we got to put butts in seats, as Nick Federo would say. And guess what? We overspent.
Well, funny that you say that. Nick, you forget something. There is a new president of baseball operations as of the middle of last season. Chris Young.
Oh, from the Mets organization. How ironic.
And if you remember something, they spent a whole lot of money last offseason signing Corey Seager and Martin Perez. And they still ended up, like 300 plus million for Corey Seager specifically. And they still ended up finishing 60 and 102 as one of the worst teams in baseball, let alone the American League.
See, what people forget to realize is that just because you spend all that money, you have to get those players to play together as a team.
Yes, but one person a team does not make, but it is also a matter of the pieces that you put around. So yes, they had Corey Seager. Yes, they had Martin Perez. Marcus Semien, pardon me. And now they're going to have Jacob DeGrom. So basically what I view this is, as I've been saying, that Chris Young is looking at this DeGrom move and basically saying it's because we have to prove correct. We have to prove our spending from last season correct. And how are we going to do that? By spending this offseason. And we're just going to continue to spend and spend because we're tired of being the little brother team in Texas.
Oh, you mean because Houston's actually winning games and in their division and Seattle's winning games in their division? I mean, you're never going to beat those two teams right now, I'm telling you.
No. So, I mean, have they made improvements to their team? I mean, technically, on paper they have. But have they made improvements in the fact that they can beat the Astros for a division title? No.
No, hell no.
How have they done it so that they could beat the Mariners for either a division title or a wild card spot? No. I don't even know if they beat the A's. I mean, granted, the A's aren't exactly the greatest of teams, but the A's were in the hunt last year to the bitter end for a wild card spot. Texas was not. Texas was far out of it. So I don't even know if they get past the A's. The Angels, I mean, that's another dumpster fire. That's a different kind of dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but this deal doesn't surprise me. We all knew Jacob DeGrom kind of felt slighted by the Mets organization because they kept passing over him to be paid. But what doesn't make sense, and I don't know if we want to go to part 2 of this now, but they kind of coincide with one or the other. So yeah. Justin Verlander.
So yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, so Justin Verlander signed.
Yeah, Justin Verlander signed. So if you're Steve Cohen, let's picture this. You're Uncle Steve. Well, I just lost Jacob DeGrom. But you know what? That's okay, because you know why? I have all these stacks of money behind me. Oh, look, there's Justin Verlander, the highest, the highest rated free agent pitcher when it comes to the free agent class right now. Okay, here you go. 2 years, $86 million deal, and a vesting third-year option. So,
I mean, this is a crazy deal in every way, shape, or form.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I don't think this deal is as crazy as they would have signing DeGrom again. Because, yeah, Verlander, there is some risk with him. But Jacob DeGrom also has had his share of injuries. And you know what? Maybe you can debate that DeGrom is better than Verlander. But there's 2 magical words with DeGrom. When healthy. Now, granted, Verlander also has had his own Tommy John surgery as of late, but guess what, Nick? Last I checked, last season, he won the AL Cy Young and helped the Houston Astros to a World Series. So
just be careful, because just remember, 39 years old, off Tommy John surgery, 1 injury, he could be done.
Well, you know what? But that's why, granted, it's better to have this 2-year deal, because Jacob DeGrom's what, 34? Who's not to say something could happen to him, and then that 5-year deal could have been worse.
But you know what's embarrassing, though? The embarrassing thing is Verlander was given more money per year.
I mean, Nick, I think he kind of earned it being the Cy Young Award winner last year.
I get it, but DeGrom is 5 years younger.
And I get it, but you know what? They have less dedicated to Verlander. They're less, they don't owe as much in terms of time. In fact, I think Scherzer is done after this next year or 2 with the Mets too.
I also don't think it helped that DeGrom was also part of that stupid arbitration bubble issue where he kind of got stuck down in the minors for a long period of time. And you could say the same thing for Alonso with the Mets. Same thing. Stuck in that eligibility season bubble. So they miss out on making the money. So I get it. Verlander's a Cy Young Award winner. Now, going from a much different division where he was now to the NL East, much different situation pitching-wise. Now, will he be better going from the AL to the NL? It doesn't really matter anymore because his DH is in both leagues. So it's not that much different. The money was unreal when I saw it.
Yeah, but, that's what's going to happen when DeGrom's the one who signed first. So, obviously, how they were going to handle Verlander was going to depend upon if they were able to get DeGrom back or not. And if they weren't, and in this case they weren't, how that contract was going to...
By the way, that happened quick. That happened quick, by the way. I didn't even think Verlander was an option for the Mets.
As I said, Uncle Steve is not going to waste any time, Nick.
Well, here's the problem. They're going to have to create the Steve Cohen tax at one point because he will blow. He's going to blow that number. That what is it? That CBT number out of the water.
The luxury tax threshold one.
Basically, yeah. And he what do you think he's going to say? Threshold? What threshold? Ching! I have the money to cover it.
I am the threshold.
I'm going to create the Steve Cohen threshold. Anyone who wants to pay it, as long as they have the money, go ahead.
So, I mean, granted, I understand what you mean, and I understand what you told me before this recording, that, hey, you know, the NL East kind of a different hitting style. Yes, we just talked about designated hitters, but the NL East teams may be a little more aggressive. Say the Braves, the Phillies, Marlins and Nationals a little iffy. Mets, I'd say, fairly aggressive as well, although their pitching staff, like last year's pitching staff, and I honestly, Nick, if Scherzer and Verlander can be healthy, this year's pitching staff too is brutal. It is a brutal one that other teams are going to have to face.
Now, let me say the one thing that I said before, which your two pitchers who are your aces are 38 years old each. One 38 and 39.
But again, you're not committed to them in the long term. It is just right now. Let's face it. The Mets have to be in win now mode. 101 wins, the second most wins in franchise history. Like we said a couple of months ago, all to lose to the Padres in the wild card series. Have that epic collapse. Well, you can debate about collapse or not because Braves better team. Hi, Johnny. But
the one thing I would say though is there is no flexibility in this roster right now whatsoever. They are built tightly. So if Scherzer and Verlander go down for any injury time at all, or Lindor goes down, or Alonso goes down, they are a tight roster.
It has to be a next man up situation. So you boys in the AAA on the AAA squad better get ready. But Nick, who's to say Cohen's done?
He's not. And by the way, there's also another name that we didn't bring up, Chris Bassett, who's another name that now the reports are he wants 5 years. Now, my answer to that 5 years would be
stay off the weed.
Duh. Yes, because Chris Bassett is 34 years old, barely pitched well in the majors. He wants 5 years?
Well, Nick, that's going to lead me to a question, which honestly kind of leads us into the other two free agents that we got to talk about how, you know, maybe he'll get it because the market's just so, you know.
I'll throw one more name at you. So we started in our original recording was Taijuan Walker. So Taijuan Walker has officially signed. Now, when I tell you what the numbers are, you're not going to believe because the numbers officially came out.
Oh,
he's going to the Phillies on a 4-year, $72 million deal.
Excuse me?
Yeah. What the Yep. He's worth 4 years, $72 million? What does that mean for the rest of the pitching market?
So $72 million. So 72 divided by 4.
It's like
I can't math, so I need to
it's like 17
$18 million a year.
Yeah, it's like 17 or 18.
$18 million a year.
18. That's nuts.
Wow. What was Taijuan Walker's last contract?
Not that. Definitely not that. I mean,
I gotta look at Sport Track. I got him.
I mean, holy shnikes, $72 million?
He was on his previous contract was a 1 year $3 million deal. And between 2022 or something like that. Oh no, because he must have he it out. But his last contract was 3 years, $23 million. So trying to do the math, he basically times the salary per year by like two and a half.
Holy cow. I don't know what to say here.
I know he had a pretty good 2020 or 2021 season, pardon me. But I didn't think 2022 was enough to earn this. Like, my God.
4 years,
Nick,
$72 million.
Nick, I will say it again. The market is fucked right now.
I'm aware, but if Taijuan Walker's getting 4 years, $72 million, what is Chris Bassett getting?
He might get that 5-year deal that he wants then.
God.
Look at all the failure.
Oh, we're not done, Nick. We're not done talking these deals.
Oh.
So, obviously, Aaron Judge was the top free agent of this class. However, he had a number 2 or 1A and 1B component. And that B or 2, depending on your perspective, was Trea Turner. So Trea Turner has signed with the Philadelphia Phillies as he was projected to be targeted by $300 million deal, 11 years. 11 years. 11 years. 11 billion years. No, it's just 11 years. But my point.
I'm just going to say this now. Trea Turner's not an all-star. Really?
What?
He's not an all-star.
You're one of the best players in baseball right now, Nick.
11 years, $300 million?
A little insane considering he'll be 40 by the time that deal is done. Yes, but...
By the way, you were making this comparison before. Aaron Judge and Trea Turner, both about 29 and 30.
Oh, yeah, both getting contracts till they're 39, 40 years old.
By the way, I wonder if Aaron Judge is looking at this deal partially also.
Yeah. If Trea Turner's getting... Well, Nick, I'm glad you brought that up because here's the thing. This was his number 2 offer in terms of value.
That's scary.
The Padres, Nick, reportedly offered him somewhere around at least 345 to 350 at least. It could have even reached $360 million. And he turned it down to go to Philadelphia. Now, there are reasons that players will turn down the larger deal in order to take lesser money. One could be the years. One could be because they want to go to a contender. One could be because maybe they don't like a certain franchise or only want to play for a certain franchise. Number 4 could be the hometown edge, which, by the way, we'll talk about Judge potentially going east to west. Here, this is a case of Turner. Here's a case of Turner going west to east. For those of you who don't know, Trea Turner actually has family in the tri-state area. Now, granted, Philadelphia is not in the tri-state area, but it is close enough that the $300 million, was basically enough, especially when they gave him 11 years that he doesn't exactly have to worry about a contract ever again.
Well, now here's the difference, though. Obviously, Judge is probably is going to get more money, but I don't know. We have this discussion all the time. Is it years? Is it money? Is it viability? What are these players looking for? We don't know. Now, it doesn't matter how many years. As long as you get the money, it doesn't matter how many years it's really over.
Well, let's talk about the other point you wanted to talk about with Trea Turner, about that this is not their only player. That's $300+ million.
Oh, yeah. So Bryce Harper is on a 13-year, $335 or $340 million deal. Thanks, Scott Boras, you dick. Anyway, by the way, I think Scott Boras is ruining the sport of baseball, but that's a whole discussion for another day.
I think you're speaking to the choir. Remember BS?
Yes, but I'm just saying I will live on and die on that hill that Scott Boras is making it impossible for the fans to afford going to baseball games.
Well, he and maybe some other agents, because Nick, that's never really talked about, but these agents, remember, are also getting 4%,
5, 6% on the high end.
I wouldn't even be surprised, Nick, if somebody got 10% of their deal.
Well, just remember, because some people will say, is it off the year? No, it's off the whole contract. Scott Boras had one of these amazing deals going. Why do you think he was always looking to push every dollar on a contract? Because he got 4% of every full contract that was signed.
Exactly. My question is going to be, like you said, if DeGrom got what he got and Verlander got what he got. Now, granted, they are pitchers, not position players. But still, they got what they got, and Turner's getting what he's getting. As we said, the market is kind of a little screwed up here. In which case, what the hell is Aaron Judge going to get? Well, that leads us to this. So, which angle do we want to talk about first, Nick? I think we're going to talk about the deal first, and then we'll talk about the mixed reports, because the mixed reports, the madness of Tuesday late afternoon or early evening was pretty horrible.
And by the way, I think John Heyman made more of a gaffe than I did.
Yeah. Let's talk about the money first. So, for the last week or so, we have had, now granted, again, we are recording this very late at night on Tuesday night. Like, we're stretching now towards 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. So by the time this episode comes out, maybe Judge has signed, and then maybe we're doing some sort of other reaction video.
Probably.
However, as of the time, or some sort of update, but as of the time we are here, right here and right now, over the last week, we've had these reports about where Judge will go, trying to get any sort of hints from, him scrubbing New York out on his Instagram, to hanging out with Nestor Cortez and Michael King with Tom Brady at the Saints-Bucks game the other day.
By the way, I need to say one thing, which is I'm so tired of that whole thing with the Instagram nonsense that some of these players do. It kind of reminds me of a certain someone that plays Call of Duty every week and can't win a football game on the field. That decided to scrub his whole Instagram because he thought he was not getting a contract.
Oh, you mean Call of Murray? Kyler plays alone?
Yes. I mean, enough with this Instagram bull crap. Grow up. You're making millions of dollars and stop being babies. All right. I read a report that apparently Aaron Judge unfollowed the Yankees on Instagram. I mean,
I can't confirm nor deny.
I mean, I'm not going to go looking at that right now. That's ridiculous. But my point is that it's so stupid. It's so stupid. You want players that are recruiting. I saw Steph Curry was recruiting Aaron Judge to San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's fine, but that's not doing bullshit like social media.
So let's talk about, the last report we've had for the past week has been the two deals are close. Like, the Yankees were like 300, 310, and the Giants were like 320 or 330, both 8 years. However, over the last 48 hours or so, a big report has come out that the Giants are potentially offering Aaron Judge a 9-year deal that's worth $360 million plus, the same kind of money that Turner was going to get from the Padres, if not more. And the assumption now, as of the last 24 hours, actually, I shouldn't even say 24, because again, Tuesday, it's the last 12-ish hours or so, is that if this report is true, all signs are indicating that Aaron Judge is going out west to San Francisco.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, all the different, and who was the reporter we were talking about? Susan Slasser?
Yeah, who is one of the big writers out there on the West Coast.
Covered the A's, now covers the Giants. She basically said she heard the rumblings from inside the clubhouse and everything, and that Aaron Judge is coming to San Francisco. Now, we saw a report earlier of the day we're recording this that the CEO or the owner had to come out and say, no, we haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, and Cashman had to come out and say he's heard nothing. Aaron Boone had to come out and basically say that the hour that they were seeing Aaron Judge's name flash on Twitter and MLB Network and such was one of the more excruciating hours that he's had to deal with his Yankees manager. Well, I guess if we're going to talk into that stuff, Nick, I think we have to talk about John Heyman now.
Yeah, so for most people who don't most MLB news and a lot of breaking news stuff now on Twitter, and basically John Heyman, I don't have the exact tweet in front of me, but he basically said that Aaron Judge chose the Giants.
Nick, no. Say the original tweet.
What?
That Arson Judge chose the Giants.
Oh, yeah, well, and then he doubled down on it and corrected it and said his name correctly.
Yes.
Now, I think he deleted all the tweets, and now you can't even see it anymore.
Yeah, so that tweet, I'm sad that he deleted that tweet. It was pretty on fire.
Duh.
Good night, everyone.
Wow. Like, oh, whoa.
We've unlocked the new camera angle.
Like, but I don't know. I mean, John Heyman definitely jumped the gun on this one. Now, the one thing I did say to Tom, which we see this a lot, John Heyman's usually not one where he's off on something like that very often.
Well, let me say it like this. It's definitely a blow for journalism because, Nick, again, we talked about this when we were talking about journalism. Do you want to be first or do you want to be right? Because
this was a massive error, though.
This was a massive error. This is the biggest free agent in baseball. One of the biggest stars, if not the biggest star of baseball. And you're going to get this kind of report wrong? You're going to jump the gun on this one?
Right. At the same time, though, like Michael Kay, who we listen to here in New York, obviously on top of the Yankee beat, the Yankee play-by-play announcer does radio.
Brian Hoach, Andy Martino, basically the sports writers who are following in the New York area, and basically saying the same thing. Where there is smoke, there is fire. So there is some sort of sign here. Now, granted, again, it was bad for him to do what he did. Even Joel Sherman, probably the best baseball insider there is right now, basically, and if you don't want to call him the best, probably one of the most professional, saying, I'm not going to put my stuff out there on social media unless I have a confirmed source on there. And actually also saying that at the winter meetings, it's meetings. It could have been, according to Sherman, one person who tells another, who tells another, who tells another, who tells another, who tells their best friend Fred.
I was going to say, you're talking about the whole 6 degrees of separation theory.
Yes, except Kevin Bacon is not anywhere near this story.
Well, yes, but my point is that he didn't even give a source, like you said. He just wrote it out. He said Aaron Judge is reportedly on his way to San Francisco. I was like, wait, what? I was like, no source, no anything, like.
Which is funny because, like we mentioned, after his little error, MLB Network, they had teased going into commercial. Oh, we have some news about Aaron Judge's front, and then right after commercial, they just went to interviewing Brian Snitker.
Yeah, because obviously they knew John Heyman fucked up. I mean, he had no source. What was he doing?
They probably had or he could have had a source, but of course it's the source that name will not say.
Oh, God. I don't know. This is crazy, though. It's just crazy the way this whole thing happened. Now, at the same time, you and I think he's heading to the Giants. That's where we think
he's heading to the Giants. I think so. If this deal is true, although if you're the Yankees, do you see, Nick, the Yankees getting desperate and potentially offering them, trying to match it? If not, give the deal that we feared either the Yankees or Giants would give, the 10-year, $400 million deal.
Well, the deal that we're reportedly hearing is 9 years, 360. At least
I said, but would one of them top it? Like either the Yankees top it with the 10-year, $400 million, or the Yankees make a counter and then the Giants offer the 10-year, $400 million.
Now, I heard other reports that the Yankees might be at 9 years, which they didn't want to be.
But again, with the market being so fucked, desperation.
I just don't. This is not George Steinbrenner's Yankees anymore. I'm going to say that a million times, and people are going to get mad at me every time I say it, but it's true. The Suns do not spend like their father.
You're correct. And that does aggravate some people. Now, granted, spending doesn't always work, like we just talked about with the Rangers. However, Nick, I think it is a little, as I even mentioned in our little group chat, like if this stuff is really going on, Hank Steinbrenner is going to have to answer to why he said Hal Steinbrenner is going to have to answer to him saying we will not be outbid on Aaron Judge. Which
I don't know.
He should have just kept his mouth closed on that one. I'm sorry.
I mean, he totally. You know how they say you lose the room or you have to read the room when you say something. Like he didn't read the room on that one.
Well, he had one vision of it, but now, like we said, the Yankees, they don't want to go to Plan B. They don't want to be thinking about a Plan B. But in this day and age in sports, you need Plan B, Plan C, all the way to Plan Z.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, Nick. If you are Ryan Cashman and Mr. Steinbrenner, what now? Let us assume Judge goes off to the Giants. What's your plan B? What's plan C?
I mean, Brandon Nimmo, maybe. That's one name that, but
now
it's going to cost you $100 million, though.
I was going to say, but now with the market being screwed, do you now have to overpay for Nimmo? Do you now have to overpay for Benintendi? For Rodon, which, by the way, about Carlos Rodon, whether or not Judge signs, it sounds like the Yankees and him are mutual. Like, it sounds like they are mutually each other's favorites.
Which would be a great pitching ad, because they really need more pitching. I know the offense will find itself. It's the pitching that really needs a fix. It
just bothers me, Nick, that it's like, yeah, what we've been saying for the past few weeks, that heading into at the end of November, that the Yankees were only going to give him till the end of November, and then they were just going to move on. They were going to put the clock on him, which we both agreed. As much as we don't like the deal that he's potentially going to get, mistake to put him on the clock.
Right. I said it over the last couple weeks that was a giant mistake on the Yankees' part, putting a deadline out there, because in free agency, the players are in charge, not the teams. You want to sign them. They pick where they want to go.
And it goes to something else I read on Twitter from somebody that I follow in the sports world, that, well, if you really wanted to get it done, if you really didn't want to get to this and not have the player control, should have got something done during the last season. Now, granted, they were in arbitration, and granted they were in arbitration. Granted, they got less time than they wanted to with Judge because of the MLB lockout. Congratulations, owners, again. But obviously, they still had April. They still had May. They could have still done something at that point. Although we have seen some players, because we see it in football right now, Nick, with Lamar Jackson, that once it reaches a certain point during the season, it's like, okay, no, now I want to be locked into the season. I don't want to be sitting at the negotiation table if I don't have to.
And I think Judge handled that correctly, because if he let that be a distraction all season, he might have not had this season.
And correct. And I will also give Judge another point. You know why? Because last season, they disclosed the terms that they were negotiating with. Now, Nick, we just watched a few months ago the Captain documentary, in which Brian Cashman went to the media when negotiating with Derek Jeter during the 2010-2011 offseason. And Derek Jeter was pretty peeved about that. So, it just, how do you make, Nick, the same mistake twice with your two franchise players of this millennium? How?
There's really no answer to it. It's really the Yankee organization, how they run. They choose to spend the money how they want to spend it. Now, we were doing comparison of Judge and Cano when you brought that up.
Well, I was going to say, it's not about so much about, not wanting to spend versus wanting to spend. I'm talking about the going to the media when the player wants it behind closed doors.
Oh, well, you're right. You're referring to the whole thing that Jeter said in the Captain documentary.
And Judge obviously was never officially named the captain. People want him to be named the captain if he comes back. That's what I'm just saying. The leader of the team for this whole millennium, first Jeter and then Judge. Like, how do you make the same mistake?
I
guess
I already told
Brian
you.
Cashman is.
I can't blame this on Brian Cashman. I have to blame this on the ownership as a whole, because they have to be willing to spend the money. Now, you've heard me say a million times now, I don't think every player is worth spending the money on. Now, if the Giants are willing to go out there and spend the 9-10 years for the 360 or 400 million, then let them do it. Let them choke themselves if they're going to do it.
But you also need backup plans. And now, granted, I know you're talking about spending money and such, but look, if Judge is gone, Turner is gone, Verlander is gone, DeGrom is gone, Rodon, you have to hope you land him. Bryan Renoylds, who we're going to touch on in just a second. Miami just made an offer of a certain package for him. If he's gone, who remember, they targeted Reynolds during the last trade deadline. This is going to be a problem. I know they were putting the clock on stuff, but my point is there's a thing called multitasking. You can work on, yes, obviously a lot of stuff like, say, the DeGrom and the Turner stuff may have been blocked off. But like all these other small, you could have tried to do something, you could have tried to do something while waiting on the judge decision to have backup plans in place and then work around that later. Instead, we're looking at the potential, which you bring up Robinson Cano. I was just looking at my Facebook feed, and it was 9 years ago yesterday, the day that we were recording this, that Robinson Cano left the Yankees for the Mariners. Now, granted, Robinson Cano and Aaron Judge, like you were saying, two different kind of players. Robinson Cano didn't have the kind of superstardom that Aaron Judge has somehow managed to have a foothold on. And Robinson Cano, of course, after he went over to the West, kind of ruined his career. Obviously, we'll still need to see that from the Aaron Judge perspective.
Don't get me wrong. Robinson Cano was a big time name, and he definitely had the flashiness. We could say that in fact, that got him in trouble sometimes in a Yankee uniform because he didn't run to the ball, or he sometimes would make clerical errors. But you couldn't sign him. That was ridiculous. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the Yankees did lowball him in some aspects, going like 7-8 years at $175 million.
And then the Yankees went through their small
period of time.
Yeah.
Right, but the Mariners like drunkenly overspent at 10 years, $300 million. Like they blew the Yankee offer out of the way, so there was no way they were coming back. But I said, "Bye, see you. Take the money. You're not going to win in Seattle."
My concern, though, like going into that mindset, though, Nick, is my concern again is if the Yankees are not willing to overspend. Yeah, maybe they're not willing to overspend on Judge, but if they're not willing to overspend, are they going to get anything? Or is it going to be, as Nick Federo told us earlier, kind of like the 2014 season where it's off season, where it's just sitting on their thumbs doing nothing? Because let me put it to you this way. I know what we just talked about with Judge, and you and I are on the same page with it, but if they sit and twiddle their thumbs and just let Judge walk and do nothing this offseason, that's a disastrous offseason.
Of course it's a disaster because if they get Judge back, which, again, the way I would put it is right now it's a 35-65 situation for the Yankees. I would even say it's probably closer to 30-70.
I'd say 30. I'd say 25-75 at this rate.
If they get Judge back, then I guess you could say it's all right because they managed to sign back Judge.
Let me put it to you this way. Either way, moves have to be made. It's just a matter of what direction do you go.
You have a freaking logjam in the infield. You could be trading some of those guys to get the assets you need.
And I said this months ago, and I'll say it again. If you lose Judge, I don't see the point in keeping Gleyber Torres around because that's the last of the core of that young group that came up 16, 17, 18. You might as well just take it out back, see what you can get for Torres. Maybe, as you mentioned in our earlier recording, maybe he is the one you offer to the Pirates for Bryan Renoylds. Because if you don't get another outfielder, Nick, Aaron Hicks is back. He has his starting job back, and I don't want that.
Well, I mean, he's under contract, so they're kind of fucked in that regard.
But Nick, again, my point, and see, this is also where I hate, is because if Aaron Judge is not on this team, I'm sorry, Nick. I know contracts and such will prevent some of this stuff, but then Aaron Hicks doesn't deserve to be a Yankee. Josh Donaldson doesn't deserve to be a Yankee.
Well, yeah.
IKF doesn't deserve to be a Yankee.
I'm not arguing or debating you on that whatsoever. It's a situation where the Yankees, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but the Yankees are penny pitching in some regards.
Otherwise, Nick, and maybe I'm just very tired. Maybe I'm just very tired. Maybe I'm just so depressed with this, all this baseball news and everybody passing by. I know this is a bad word in New York, Nick, but
rebuild?
Could the Yankees be considering the magic R word, or rebuild?
Well, let me clear one thing. The Yankees don't officially rebuild. That's not in their DNA to officially rebuild.
But I'd say, I know Johnny and Hank hated this term and didn't want to associate it with this because of this Judge and Torres and everything stuff. But like I called it during some Baby Bombers 2.0, where you look towards your Perazzas, your Carrera, your Volpe, your Dominguez, and start to focus on, you take a few years down and focus on getting them ready.
I mean, but is that going to be worth the season ticket sales or the expensive tickets that they put in Yankee Stadium? Are people going to spend the money for that? That's what I want to know. Because they're still going to charge exorbitant prices for Yankee games.
Right. And of course, that doesn't go with the Yankee vision, whatever you think that is right now, of being in it to win it every year. You still need those kinds of pieces, and you need leaders for these guys to look up to. Now, getting Rizzo back, phenomenal. Because I didn't want Eric Hosmer to be my first baseman this year.
Yeah, but there's a weird issue with that. So you brought Rizzo back because him and Judge were kind of that tandem duo where Rizzo was kind of that leader type.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you don't bring Rizzo back unless Aaron Judge comes back.
And that was the feeling. That was the feeling that Judge was going to end up coming back. That Rizzo was a good first sign that Judge was on his way back.
Apparently not, though. By the way, that's going to be a waste of a signing if he doesn't come back here.
No, I disagree. Because I think they were, in terms of positioning, don't get me wrong, in terms of Judge and his star power and his power bat, his feeling. In terms of position and depth, the Yankees were much more desperate at first base. I'm sorry. Like I said, I didn't want another Guzman or anybody else play, or Marwin Gonzalez playing first base. The Yankees didn't have anybody. If you would have screwed over DJ LeMahieu and his flexibility, you would have forced DJ LeMahieu to have been your first baseman if you didn't get Rizzo back.
I don't know. This situation kind of reminds me of LeBron James when he was out on free agency trying to figure out what team. You know how every team, I'm talking about the first time, the decision, 2010. Where they were, where all these teams were trying to gather all these assets to say, "Hey, LeBron, come here, play with us." And you know how many teams got screwed when, and LeBron, when he chose Miami, every other team got screwed because they were making moves just because LeBron basically had control over everybody.
Hey, look at the New York Knicks this past offseason having to give Jalen Brunson over $100 million.
I mean, they were so desperate. They were trying to get Mitchell, and that deal fell apart. And now, look, he's in Cleveland, and they're not actually doing too poorly. But I don't know. We all know
there's a lot that needs to be explored. There's a lot more. Let's just say there's going to be a lot more ranting and raving that you're going to hear from the two of us, from Nick Federa especially, and from the guys over at Game On.
By the way, we spent more time this time on this recording than we did before as we were going. But
well, we got that last recording was when we stopped during this.
Right, but I'm just saying we definitely went a lot further in the expansion of this. But there's so much.
Let's talk about the other two baseball. The two other baseball stories we got to get to. Let's talk about. So let's talk about Bryan Reynolds. So Bryan Reynolds has requested a trade. Supposedly the Yankees have made contact saying we're interested again. The Marlins have a contract and supposedly offered a package. Which is funny because earlier this week, the Pirates actually said, no.
Well, I mean, if he's in the system, then they don't care. It's not up to him then. He can request a trade all he wants. It doesn't mean he's going to get it.
Yeah, but, I mean, what, Nick? Do you think Bryan Reynolds wants to stay around this quadruple A squad of a team?
No. I didn't say that. I totally get it. First of all, the Pirates should just fold as an organization because they... but... Contraction, yes. But the Marlins, the Pirates, years ago it was the Orioles. The Orioles are actually now starting to turn into a decent young team. But the Nationals at one point before they won that World Series, like these were teams that are bottom of the barrel teams. Like they just don't compete. Like they just make good players. And then they say, oh, well, we can't afford you, so we'll trade you and get assets back. And then we'll just keep doing this like an endless cycle all over again.
I just don't know. With the Pirates, it's always same as it ever was. And when I say same as it ever was,
I mean, you have to go back to the YMCA days or whatever with the
We Are
Pirates.
Family.
I mean, the We Are Family days, just to find a competitive Pirates team.
Yeah, here's how I sum up. Now there are some rare exceptions. There are some exceptions, like when they were led by Andrew McCutchen. There are some exceptions like those days, but as of late, it's just been this.
Look at all the failure.
Oh my god, I got surprised by that now too.
You see what I mean now?
Yes,
Okay.
but the Pirates are a failure of an organization. I mean, didn't they have, what was his name, Neil Huntington or Hutchinson as the GM for the longest time, and then he finally got fired because this team was going nowhere, just finishing like with 100 losses every season.
Yeah, their focus. Yeah, which is actually the opposite of the Yankees, in which the big signing that they had this offseason, Nick, is the general manager, the one who stayed around. We rolled out the red carpet, boys. We've brought it home. He's here. We have made our big acquisition. Here he is. It's me. It's me, Austin.
I mean, all I can say is when you look at the Yankee fans and them trying to figure out what's going to happen this season, we all know what the ownership is saying, right?
RELAX.
FUCKOFF.
But no, that's what the Steinbrenner is like. Relax, we'll be okay. Aaron Judge, who needs him?
Meanwhile, Aaron Boone was probably watching MLB Network and had the Twitter feed of saw the breaking news and just had a panic attack in his room. Speaking of outfielders, Nick, so remember we talked about Cody Bellinger, where he needed to go to a team that will maybe try to fix him, try to give him a chance? Yeah, he has found that team. Go Cubs, go.
Oh my god. And I heard they got him for like $17.5 million.
Which honestly may be a win-win. They only
That's
have to
probably
commit
a
to him
steal.
for one. That's they only have to commit to him for 1 year. Bellinger can find a way to work on himself. And the Cubs, I mean, if they do things right and they turn him around, maybe they'll give him a longer deal and maybe he can be help the franchise out.
I heard reportedly that the Dodgers wanted him back, but I guess that never was a thing. Oh well.
No, it was a thing, but I guess the Cubs offered him, like you said, a steal of a deal.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, Cody Bellinger went from having a MVP type season and really
he was the MVP in 2019.
Right.
And then he just
fell off
after COVID season fell off the cliff.
Because he's a very streaky pull hitter. That's why. And we see that with a lot of guys in MLB now, pull hitters. They don't know how to hit the opposite field. Now, with this whole illegal shift situation, you're probably going to see more hits now. But we'll see.
It's worth seeing. All right. That is it for all of the baseball. All of the baseball is done. For now. Until next time. But we have football we got to get through. Plenty of football. And let's stick with the topic of signings, Nick. Except we're going to talk about a non-signing now. So, Odell Beckham Jr. Now, last week we talked about how he was going to have visits with the Giants and the Cowboys, the Bills, and the Rams. Well, apparently the Cowboys have been contacted by a source that says Odell has not progressed enough in his recovery from his torn ACL, which he tore during the Super Bowl last year for the Rams. And basically, there's a chance I've said that Odell may not see the regular season for this season. But now, according to this unnamed source that talked to the Cowboys, he may not even be ready before mid-January. He may not even be ready till the 2023 season.
Again, not surprised. Torn ACL. That sometimes takes a year plus to recover from.
Yeah.
I mean, I would stay away from Odell this whole season, including the playoffs, because you don't know if he's going to be healthy. You don't know if he's going to injure himself again. I mean, heck, it was a freak injury during the Super Bowl. Now, I think you said this, and I agreed with you a couple weeks ago that Odell was probably going to be the MVP if he didn't get hurt in the Super Bowl.
He was on track. The first quarter, he had a tremendous quarter. He probably would have been in contention.
So he is a good player. I'm not denying it. I don't think he's a number one wide receiver anymore. I've been on the record for that for the last couple of weeks now. That I think he's a number two at best. Maybe lower. I think he's a decent player, but the Giants, who were supposedly having dinner with him and thinking about bringing him in, you're not a wide receiver away from winning a Super Bowl.
No, but they do need a wide receiver. Now, granted, the receivers that they've been with are okay. I just think, Nick, and maybe this stays the same even with Odell. I don't know. Maybe you're the Jets fan here. Maybe you can help me out from a non-Giant fan perspective. If the Giants, regardless of how the rest of the season goes, if they just miss the playoffs, if they make the playoffs as a wild card, do you, considering how the season has gone, the good that has been presented, do you have to give Danny another contract based on the fact that he's had no receiving core, basically?
I mean, what I will say is that Daniel Jones played way better than I expected. I was expecting him to have first of all of New York football is having a way better season than we expected. Let's go on that preface first.
Absolutely. I mean, Giants are in the hunt. Jets are in the hunt. Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL right now.
I mean, after that horrible loss to the Vikings this past week. But both teams are in the hunt. Both teams were supposed to be like 500 at best. And they are both over 500. So I guess you could say that's an accomplishment. Now, the Giants, who have no wide receiving core whatsoever, that's a problem. That's why they're not ever going to make that next step. And adding Odell Beckham Jr. as your one is not going to raise you above other teams. It's just not going to. The Bills, if he were to go to the Bills, that's an add-on situation behind Stephon Diggs. So that would be a fit.
I was going to say maybe behind Gabe Davis too, but nah. I think he'd probably upheave Gabe Davis at the wide receiver too.
I think you could wide receiver split between Odell and Diggs on each side of the football, and then you would have two pretty large options that could catch the football. The Giants, that's their only threat. You're going to triple team Odell, and that's it. No one's going to catch the football.
And then you better pray, Darius Slayton is open or Brandon Ritchie is open.
I mean, not that I want him on the Jets, but he would even fit better on the Jets, considering they have Barrios and they have Garrett Wilson.
Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore.
So they could stick him in as kind of like a wide receiver 2 or 2.5, I would call it, between two spots if they really wanted to. I don't really want him on the Jets because I think he's a headache, but I could see him fitting there more than the Giants. If the Giants had a one, or Darius Slayton didn't drop the most percentage of passes in the NFL this year, then maybe you stick him with there, and then they would have two guys. It doesn't work that way. I don't think he should come back this season. I think he should get healthy and come back in 2023.
Oh, Nick, you want to talk about head cases? You want to talk about head cases? Okay. Hey, it's funny. We started the year, Nick, with an Antonio Brown story. We're getting towards the end of our year. Hey, look who's back. Back again. AV's back. Hide your friends.
Yeah. Now, everyone's going to yell at me because I'm playing Curb Your Enthusiasm, and that's usually for a lot of joking stuff. But AB is a joke. AB has had so many issues, from Dick Gate to now supposedly having guns in a locked house and refusing to come out to the police due to a misdemeanor domestic battery situation. Does this guy realize he's not Teflon? He's not indestructible?
So supposedly there was even some sort of the report said that there was a standoff. Now, they didn't know if AB was home or not. They didn't know if he was home or not, and it seemed like maybe there was no answer from AB or anyone else. And supposedly there was a big family matter, like you said. Kids were scared.
I mean,
here's my problem, Nick. This is a guy who needs help. You screamed it when we did this story for the first time back in January, that this guy needed mental health help.
yes, and he still does.
However, he just seems to just not care. Either not care or refuse help or refuse to recognize that he has a problem, because it's been a year. I mean, Nick, look at the way he treated Tom Brady. Yeah, I know we joked about Tom Brady and his divorce as well, but you saw the shots he was taking, and
you saw the text messages he returned back. We saw that.
And this is a guy, Tom Brady, who tried to get him on his team at both in New England and in Tampa Bay.
Well, both teams.
Yes,
I think he was on both teams. Yeah.
Well, he didn't play a game in New England because of, or was it only one game? Because
it was one game.
Came the sexual assault.
One game. Yeah. I mean, what he doesn't realize is a guy who has 7 Super Bowl rings and sticking his neck out and saying, "Come play with me. I'll take you in. We'll win a Super Bowl ring."
Say what you want about Tom Brady, the athlete, or say what you want to say about Tom Brady and his personality, but the man is being a man.
He's throwing you a bone.
Throwing you a bone and trying to be a help, trying to be a guiding light. Look how you treated him.
He let you live in his house.
Yes.
People forget that, by the way, that Tom Brady said to AB, "Come live in my house." And I think that was like when they were teammates, just to be on a more bond level. But this is just getting worse. And by the way, AB working with Kanye West on Donda Sports, a whole
that's a disaster now.
Add that to the list of BS that AB has caused this year.
I was going to ask for confirmation. He's still president or spokesperson of Donda Sports. That hasn't changed.
I mean, I can look.
He hasn't parted ways with Kanye in the same way that everybody has been parting away from Kanye and Kyrie.
No, well, he was named the president on October 28th, 2022. So it's fairly recent. I don't know. It's just
AV and Yee and Kyrie. It's so perfect together. It's a match made in, well, it's not heaven for sure.
It's the next show on the Daily Wire presented by Ben Shapiro.
Oh God. Wow. Okay. Now, Nick, let's keep with the. I know it was bad to be lighthearted when it came to that kind of story, but Nick, I have a way that we can make this a little lighthearted.
Oh no! Oh God! I don't hear any sound.
Yeah, I don't hear any sound either. Let me try that again.
Broncos country, Broncos country, Broncos country, let's rock. Broncos country, Broncos country, Broncos country, let's rock.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another edition of Broncos country. Let's ride.
Oh my God!
So, Nick, I mean, on one hand, you have the fact that the Broncos, like I said at the start of the show, just punched their fans in the gut again. This time, losing on the last play. You were up 9-3. Now, granted, you didn't get any touchdowns in that game, but you were up 9-3. Last drive of the game. You had the Ravens. The Ravens were driving with, by the way, Tyler Huntley as the quarterback, because Lamar Jackson is now hurt because he got injured during the first quarter or first half of the game.
Sprained MCL.
Yep. And then what do? What does your defense do? Let's up the only touchdown of the game with like 30 seconds left, and you lose the game 10-9.
Good job. Bravo. Way to go.
You are just proving to be the utmost. I'm sorry, Nick. Nick, I know we talked about the Giants and Jets as embarrassments for the NFL for the past few years. For the Jets, the past decade, 2 decades. I don't care if the Giants and Jets collapse and miss the playoffs. They cannot be the laughingstock of the NFL right now. This team right here, for all that it did in the offseason, hiring Hackett because they thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers chose to stay in Green Bay, trading for Russell Wilson, getting Geno Smith and Noah Fant and all those out of there. Starting the season, Nick, with Russell Wilson as your quarterback, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon as your running backs, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, all of them at your wide receiver, Kendall Hilton, all of them. You would think, and actually Greg Dulcich, by the way, has actually turned out to be a pretty decent tight end for a rookie.
Yeah.
You would think this team might do something, that this team might, even if they don't, topple the Chiefs or topple the Chargers, that they could at least be competitive. And instead, we have a team, Nick, that is worse than the Carolina Panthers and all the hell that they're going through. Not to mention the fact, Nick, that remember, they traded several first-round picks, one of them being this coming draft's first-round pick. So you have the Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith having a comeback player of the year style season, helping the Seahawks be competitive. And depending on how Jimmy G's injury goes with the 49ers, Geno Smith could potentially lead the Seahawks to an NFC West title and a playoff berth. And as of right now, Nick, because of how bad the Broncos are sucking, the Seahawks have the number 3 overall pick in the draft coming up. Look what you have done. You have just given all the help in the world to Pete Carroll in Seattle, and you guys are just... I'm sorry, Nick. I can't believe this team.
I mean, I'll go one step further.
Look at all the failure.
I mean, it's a lot of failure. I mean, Russell Wilson got the gigantic contract from the Walmart family.
Yeah, well, Nick, so I remember we were having this debate about cutting Zach Wilson, and I said, yeah, well, next season he's going to have like a $20 million cap hit or something like that they shouldn't. Nick, next season, Russell Wilson has like, it's either a $120 million cap hit the next season and an $80 million the year after, or an $80 million this coming season. Congrats, Denver. You're stuck with Russell Wilson, whether you like it or not.
What?
The cap hit for Russell Wilson is ridiculous. I gotta look up Spot Track again. You have to. If you read this contract, Nick, it is one of the best, and it could have been one of the best contracts, but it's one of the worst. So,
well, you're talking about dead money, right? Because that 120,
yeah. Nick, so this all season, if they had cut him, which obviously they're not doing it, it's 124 million. Next season, if they cut him in this coming off season, $107 million dead cap in 23, $85 million in 24, $49.5 million in 25, and then there's the potential out. So, but that is a lot of money that they are putting into Russell Wilson.
I mean, that's my answer.
Nick,
what?
And this is a team that's going to be playing on Christmas. They're going to play on Christmas Day. And they're going to play the Rams, who we're going to talk about a little later. And Nick, this game is going to be the game on Nickelodeon. This is the CBS Nickelodeon simulcast on Christmas. Yeah, because that's what I want to encourage. I want to encourage my kids, to watch more football. And I'm going to do that by showing them a shitty Broncos team on Christmas Day.
Oh, God. Why? Why would you do that?
But let's talk about the real story that I brought this up. Before the Ravens lost, Nick, a report came out that apparently Russell Wilson has lost the locker room. Surprise, surprise.
I mean, I'm not really surprised by this. And anyone who's surprised by this, you're an idiot. The team stinks. That's number one.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. What did you say something?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
Well, that could be for a few people. Are you saying Russell Wilson? Are you saying Nathaniel Hackett? Melvin Gordon, who got released?
Well, also it doesn't help that they have like 15 injured players, like the most in the NFL this year.
Well, it doesn't help that your quarterback is Aaron Rodgers-sized cap load.
How? Imagine, Nick, using this sound effect.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
If I told you last year we were going to use that sound effect on Russell Wilson, you would have slapped me silly.
Probably, yeah. No one thought Russell Wilson was going to be this bad. And by the way, his red zone percentages are like 0.
Which, again, do you blame it on Wilson or do you blame it on the coaching? And Nick, I know we talk about maybe not holding players accountable and always going to the coach first, but with that cap hit that you're going to take for Wilson, if you're going to choose to get rid of somebody, I don't think you have a choice. You're going to have to get rid of the coaching staff before you get rid of Wilson. Not with all that money that you put into the quarterback so far.
I'll say it again, and it's not just baseball, since we were talking about that earlier. It's any sport. The guys who make the money go nowhere. It's the coaches that always get sucked up and chewed up and spit out. I mean, look what happened to Matt Rule. Even though Matt Rule's getting all his money, and now he's the coach of Nebraska.
Nebraska, yeah.
By the way, that's the biggest severance package in the history of history. I stole that from Hank and Dichter, by the way. But it is. He's going to make like 40-something million, which he could have sat home and did. And now he's going to make another 80-something million with Nebraska. So this is bizarre. And they had to flex Broncos Chiefs out because they did. I'm so tired. How many times have we seen Broncos on primetime games this year?
Well, imagine that. Imagine, because it was just a couple of weeks ago that they were adding more Chiefs primetime games because Patrick Mahomes. The NFL has made the conscious decision to flex Patrick Mahomes out of a primetime game because they don't want to make people suffer through another Broncos primetime game.
Gee, I wonder why. I mean, their offense is so bad. I didn't think with Russell Wilson as a quarterback, like leading the way, when they were in Seattle, and now it's making me question, like you were saying earlier, did Pete Carroll really like help him out there? Now he had Lockett and he had Rashard Penny and he had all those other guys. DK Metcalf in Seattle. What are your weapons in Denver?
But that's the thing. Cortland Sutton, I think, is good. I think Jerry Jeudy's good, but injured. Tim Patrick, injured. Javonte Williams, injured.
By the way, I think Jerry Jeudy has an attitude problem also. That's a whole different issue. But
oh, you mean his arrest from this past offseason didn't tell you that?
I'm talking about, I forgot which game it was where he missed him on a open play in the end zone. It was one of the Amazon games, I think, where Russell Wilson threw an interception into traffic in the red zone, and Jerry Jeudy was wide open on the right side of the end zone, and he like threw the helmet.
Well, supposedly, some players are getting tired with, his antics. We know Russell Wilson sometimes can be a little bit of a bizarre player. Like
ask him about Subway.
Ask him about Mr. Unlimited.
Ask him about all the clothing lines he's doing. I mean,
ask him about Nick. You know what? I think we should have an activity. You and I should, as a way of doing some ETV network bonding, we should go find an airplane. And on this airplane, we're going to go into the aisle and we're going to go do high knees together.
You're talking about the flight to London.
Yes.
Where he said, I need to exercise while everyone else is sleeping.
Yeah.
You can't make it up. Russell Wilson is definitely a creative character, to say the least.
And then there's also the, as I mentioned, the Mr. Unlimited, but you had the video edit in that one video we did for TikTok, Unlimited Diarrhea, which perfectly explains the Broncos offense at this point. Unlimited Diarrhea.
That video did so good on TikTok, by the way. Oh,
maybe it needs a sequel.
It might need a sequel. You're right. By the way, but Hackett calling this all gossip, he should shut up. He's going to lose his job.
Yeah. Nathaniel. Yes, I can't even call you Hackett. Nathaniel. Not even coach. I have a song for you.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop your fucking lying.
I think it's pretty clear, and that nobody would blame if the Broncos locker room is kind of fed up, whether it's at you or whether it's at Russell.
Yeah, I mean, this They're fucked. This season's over. By the way, before you hit the next story, the Phillies made another move.
Oh no.
I mean, it's not major. They signed
Okay.
Matt Strom to a 2-year, $15 million deal.
Okay, that's not major.
But they're making moves, though.
They are making moves. Hey, I mean they won the NL pennant as a number 6 seed. So I mean they got to do something.
Imagine if they get up higher this year, this coming season. They're gonna be more dangerous.
It might be a pretty tight race between the Braves, Phillies, and Mets for the division.
Right.
That'd be a good race.
We'll see.
Let's talk more about being fucked, and let's talk more about the Rams. So, about 36 hours ago, the news came out that Baker Mayfield was released by the Panthers. Now, according to one NFL insider, Baker had asked for his release from the Panthers, which I thought was strange. However, I guess it seems to have worked out in his favor. Fortune favors the bold, because he has been claimed by the Rams, who, if you remember, put Matthew Stafford on the injured reserve. So he is out till about week 17, which means the next 3 weeks of the regular season, Nick, but maybe even potentially the rest of the regular season, since the Rams seem to be going nowhere, is that Baker Mayfield will be the starting quarterback there.
I mean, what are the Rams? Obviously, they don't trust Perkins or Wolford to start. Obviously, that they went out and got a failed quarterback in Baker Mayfield. I mean, the Rams' season is done anyway, so it's not like it really matters. What are they, like 4-8 or
something like that,
or 3-8, whatever? Like, their season is over. This is pretty much getting to the end of the season. Like, what a turn of events after winning a Super Bowl and being massively under 500.
I think this is the biggest collapse of a team that won the Super Bowl to the next season. I think this
let's be careful though. Obviously, they've had a lot of injuries. Cooper Kupp went down for the year. As soon as that happened, their season was over.
Who's
Stafford. The other? Well, Stafford, but who's the other?
Allen Robinson.
That's it. Allen Robinson, who gets no respect whatsoever, out for the year. Van Jefferson is barely hanging on by a thread, and he's not a number one by any stretch of the imagination.
Cam Akers was coming off of an injury, and then he had the whole feud with McVay and the organization, so he was done. Darrell Henderson ended up underperforming and ended up getting released.
Dang. Yeah, I forgot about that. You're right. This team is in collapse mode, is what I call it.
The offense fell apart pretty quickly, just like the Broncos.
Yeah, two teams that are in free fall mode.
Urinating tree. I'm gonna make a suggestion. You should get the greatest game video ready for Broncos Rams Christmas.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say recommendation was to come on this show first, but yeah, that works too.
A couple more football stories we got to talk about, and then we'll get to the basketball. Scott Hanson. So he, right before Sunday's Week 13 matchups, finally released a little thread that explains the story that you guys talked about last week, where
this was bizarre in a lot of ways. Now, I'm still not buying the fact from Scott where he said, well, we didn't know that it was not part of the national doubleheader.
Okay, I was going to read it.
But I'm just paraphrasing. I don't remember the whole thing. I don't have it in front of me. But, so basically for people who didn't know what happened last week, the Raiders and the Seahawks played an overtime game. By the way, no one has a crystal ball. No one knew it was going to be an overtime game. But the rules are that when there's one game left... What?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay, there it was. I was like, wait a minute. Scott Hanson wasn't appearing for me. I was like, wait a minute. Do I have his... It's right. I misspelled. So... let's see.
But basically what was happening was on NFL RedZone, the rules are when there's one game left, they can't legally have one game only on RedZone. It's not allowed. So Scott goes on to say, well, all right, well, make sure you tune in to your local CBS affiliate to catch the rest of Raiders Seahawks. One problem, though.
It wasn't the national game. So most of CBS programming on the East and Central had ended their broadcast, and they were showing 60 minutes at that point.
Yeah, so only the Raiders local affiliates, whether that probably includes Oakland and Vegas, and Seattle,
yeah. And
were the
so
only ones who could see it.
if you weren't in any of the allowed markets, you missed the Josh Jacobs
80-yard run and overtime.
Yep. So anyways, here's the full statement from Scott Hanson. There was a Twitter thread from right before the Week 13 Sunday games. For those wondering about NFL Red Zone sign-off at the end of the day, 1, please remember I'm the host of the show. I'm not an executive making decisions. 2, I hope I've established that I want to show you all of the best parts of every game. 3, basically, to the best of my understanding, parentheses, I'm not in the meetings where this gets decided.
Ugh.
When there is one game remaining, CBS wants to bring the NFL Red Zone audience to CBS. I, in parentheses, try and give you a heads up verbally and via screen graphic as to when that's happening. When CBS has Nance Romo on the National 425 game, you should be able to flip over and watch the conclusion. In last week's case, Las Vegas or Seattle, that was not a national game, but I was under the impression CBS was showing overtime to the whole country at that point. I was wrong. I was misinformed. I apologize for passing along bad info. Going forward, I will try and let you know which parts of the country will see the ending of the last game standing if it's not national. I have zero control over what CBS shows and doesn't show to which parts of the USA. I have asked repeatedly for more clarification. If and when I get it, I will pass along. I care about you, our viewers, customers, and fellow football fans. I know how frustrating this is. As always, I thank you so much for watching. Scott.
All right. Some of it is okay. Some of it is a little cloudy-ish.
Okay, start with the okay.
So I understand that he's right. Technically, you can't determine what game is going to finish the NFL Red Zone schedule. That's all random. That all depends on when games finish. So obviously that happens. But you're telling me that there's no directors coordinating producers before Red Zone starts that say, all right, just keep in mind that these games are in the national doubleheader and these games are not. So if this happens and this comes up, make sure you tell them that it's only a localized game. Well, that's the problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had a screw up in that, and a pretty major one. Now, I will agree with you, and I bet where you're going, that pointing to CBS and saying their fault, no.
You can't point to CBS. It's an NFL product, first of all.
Now, granted, I think the fact that we are in 2022 and we have a situation like this happening.
Oh, you're talking about blackouts. Yeah.
Blackouts, the restrictions, any of that is pretty stupid. So I remember
with digital, you shouldn't have blackouts anymore.
Well, I was going to leave you to say. So I remember, Nick, two things. One, it kind of goes against the NFL Red Zone product. And, I want to see, as a viewer of NFL Red Zone, every touchdown from every game. Now, granted, they managed to throw it in at the end of the touchdown montage. But me, personally, I don't want to see every touchdown from every game and a touchdown run. Something like that Josh Jacobs touchdown run, I want to see live.
Right.
I want to see it happen as it's happening. I don't want to see it. So I remember a few weeks ago where Nick Federa was saying, if you have the NFL Red Zone, why would you get the Sunday ticket when that goes to a streaming service? Well, you know what? This is going to be an example of why.
Now, the mistake that was made was that they just didn't inform the people correctly. They have no control over which game finishes Red Zone.
And you're right, and you are right. But I think that's just as bad as basically misinforming your audience, intentionally or not.
Now, when Scott also said, I don't know if it was in this one or the last thread, that I'm an employee, they're the bosses. Come on. That's when I literally said last week, if your boss told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? That's my point. Like, you're not. Sometimes the bosses are wrong. I hate to say that, but it's true. Sometimes, like when at my job, when I was at the radio station, I used to question things all the time. It didn't make them very happy, but there was a few times where I picked up on mistakes that they didn't. Sometimes you have to, like in that situation. And when you're coming down to the last game, why aren't the producers looking ahead and saying, hey, Scott, let me pass you what they call a promo card that says, make sure you don't screw it up where the game is. No one sees it on TV. It's just on the desk where he's standing. and just make sure you say, "Oh, it's not part of the national doubleheader."
Right.
You're either gonna have to find a digital way to watch it or whatever.
Or you're out because unfortunately, I do understand the exclusivity things, as stupid as they are. CBS wants the audience to turn into their game. Fox, I bet, would be the same way, and NBC, of course, wants everything, games, touchdown montage, all of that to wrap up at 8:00 because then Sunday Night Football comes on.
Right. Now, technically, they don't have the window until 8:00. Now, Nick made a good point, and I kind of agree with it in some aspects. Screw the football montage. If in certain aspects, if there's a game going on, use the extra 15 minutes to show the game. It might mean you don't see the whole rest of the game, but at least you're not getting screwed out of watching something.
Right. Or you do a speed off sign off. Like, I know they have to do the top 5 plays and to show how many touchdowns are scored. I think you got to do a more speedy sign off in that case.
Or I would just say, look, and Nick made a good point. Tell the producers for 1 week they don't have to work hard to put a montage together if there's an overtime game going on. Like, the games are why people are there. I could give 2 shits about the damn montage. That's recorded content after it already happened.
You could air it as I guess you could air it as a YouTube exclusive 1 week if you needed to.
Right. I mean, and Nick made another good point. Like, if I want to see the highlights, I'll go to YouTube and watch them after.
I mean, don't they condense the games, like each game in like 30 minutes?
Yeah. So, and the NFL also does highlight packages of the week after. So there's really no reason for the touchdown montage.
A couple more stories I want to get through. 2 in the basketball world, which Nick is going to blow up on. I think he'll have the energy for it once I bring them up. But one last football story coming from the college world. Yeah, we do have the college football playoff that I actually think, side note, they got right. However, I think that's kind of been undertaken. I think that's more of Game On's territory. Our territory would unfortunately be here. Florida dismissing its quarterback, Jalen Kitna, after Kitna was charged for child pornography. Now, should clarify, because of the way our thing is set up with, how we set up our little graphics and such. He is not the main quarterback of Florida. Kitna was the backup quarterback. So
right.
So don't get that confused. It's not the main quarterback, it's the backup quarterback. However, it is a college athlete. It is a football player. And I don't think I should say anything else. I shouldn't need to say anything else. I mean, read it. Child porn charges. You think you want this guy around on a football field?
I mean, somehow he got released from jail on $80,000 bond.
I'm sorry, what?
You didn't see that? He got released on $80,000 bond. Yeah. Oh, no, I get you. I totally understand it.
I don't want to talk about the story anymore.
By the way, does the last name look familiar to you for any
Kitna. Yeah.
John Kitna's son?
Yeah.
So apparently, John Kitna addressed the court during a 75-minute appearance. Ugh. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, do we put this up on the same level as what's his name? That story we did from San Diego State or whatever? The punt god?
Ariza?
Yeah.
I mean...
There are 2 different types of terrible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just...
Yeah.
That's what you make me want to do at that point. All right. Now, Nick, I'm going to end the show with 2 subjects that are going to make you want to. So let's start it off with LeBron James. So Nick answered the question.
So LeBron states, why ask me about Kyrie, but not about Jerry Jones' desegregation protest photo?
So Kyrie Irving obviously is... I don't think I need to... Unless you've been hiding under a rock, I don't think I need to explain why Kyrie is relevant. Jerry Jones's photo. So apparently there's this old photo from the 50s that Jerry Jones was 14 at a local school, I think, where they were having a rally to protest potential passing of desegregation. In other words,
right. Yes.
In other words, trying to bring white and blacks
together. Yeah. Yeah, this whole story is unfortunate in every way, shape, or form. So LeBron was in the I think he was. I don't know if he was courted by the media or if he actually no. I think he was up on the press conference stand, and he literally just said, "Why ask me about Kyrie, but not about Jerry Jones desegregation protest?" LeBron, you hate talking to the media. Now, you don't like being asked about Kyrie, but you wanted to be asked about Jerry Jones. Am I missing something here?
I mean, he was getting asked about Kyrie, and I guess I kind of get it in the sense of that they are very similar in that, here's Jerry Jones, and I don't think we need an old photo, because you could say, because I know the argument's going to be, oh, it's an old photo from the 50s to 60s, cancel culture, digging up past, blah, blah, blah. We know Jerry Jones has been, even to this day, Nick, a sketchy kind of character.
Yes, obviously.
The NFLPA during the Deshaun Watson case came out and said about punishing certain owners or lack thereof, and on the lack thereof was Jerry Jones.
Right.
So I understand LeBron's point in that perspective. However, he's basically, and this is why sometimes, Nick, I just cannot take LeBron seriously as a champion for, equality, because here you are defending Kyrie Irving. In a way, kind of defending Kyrie Irving. In a way, saying, why are you asking me about Kyrie? Well, let's see. If I remember correctly, was it as part of our NBA drama summer? Wasn't one of our headlines about Kyrie's future potentially not being in Brooklyn? And we said LA, because let's see, if I remember correctly, that 2016 championship team in Cleveland, who was your right-hand man, LeBron?
Well, Kyrie hit the game-winning shot.
Hey!
I mean, if Kyrie doesn't hit that shot, they don't beat the Warriors.
I mean, yeah, and I want to pull up the quote. I'm sorry to give me a sec, but I want to pull up the quote that.
But this whole thing is just ridiculous. I mean, and what Tom's saying is right. There were rumors that the Lakers were willing to trade for Kyrie Irving, and the Nets would take 2 first-round picks so that Kyrie and LeBron could play together again, and they could go kumbaya around the fire and try to win an NBA title all over again.
The quote, Fulton quote, when I watch Kyrie talk and he says, I know who I am, but I want to keep the same energy when we're talking about my people and the things that we've been through. And that Jerry Jones photo is one of those moments that our people, black people, have been through in America. And I feel as a black man, as a black athlete, as someone with power and a platform, where we do something wrong or something that people don't agree with, it's on every single tabloid, every single news coverage, it's on the bottom ticker, it's asked about every single day. But it seems like to me that the whole Jerry Jones situation photo, and I know it was years and years ago, we all make mistakes, I get it, but it seems like it's just been buried under oh, it happened. Okay, we just move on. I mean, I get in that sense because supposedly people have been saying, oh, it has been talked about, and it has been talked about. Now, to the degree that the Kyrie stuff has been happening, no. But this also was something, I think, only last week that's really been discovered. Meanwhile, Kyrie, this has been what? An ongoing, long
It's an ongoing debacle.
And it doesn't help that it's also tied into a pop star, someone from outside the sports culture, into pop culture like Kanye West, both spreading views of anti-Semitism. So, yeah, I get it, because trying to, stop hate against your people, but it also, Kyrie is spewing out hate against another race of people. It all doesn't make sense. Hate is hate. Hate is hate, racism is racism, and it is all wrong.
Well, LeBron just wants it his own way. That's why he keeps making these dumb statements. But, by the way, for most people who don't realize it, and LeBron tries to hide from it, you tried to have Kanye West on your HBO show, The Shop, and guess what happened? They had to cancel the whole thing because Kanye West went on a complete racist rant to the point where LeBron and company said, we can't air this. But hey, LeBron, I'm talking to you as an individual. You tried to have Kanye West on your HBO show. Don't talk about racism and disrespect when you tried to have Kanye West on your show.
I mean, when it comes to, when it comes to Kanye, Nick, when you make Alex Jones speechless.
I'm trying to avoid that whole thing because that'll lead to a whole different issue. But
that's beyond the bench territory. I know.
Well, we talked about it this past week. But LeBron, you're a hypocrite. I'm sorry. You're a massive hypocrite. And you don't want to hear about Kyrie stuff, but you want everyone to ask you about Jerry Jones. Who cares? Who cares? No one asked for your opinion on this. No one.
Speaking of Kyrie. So apparently, Nick, this kind of Nike's had enough. So it cancels the membership list. It canceled its little sponsorship list months after the whole debacle started to really, hit the fan or tip over. And now a month later, apparently Nike and Kyrie Irving have parted ways. They say with both parties, mutually.
They called the agent, called the decision mutual.
The agent called it mutual. Yeah.
You're funny.
Hold on a minute. I have a sound for this. I can't find my mouse, but I have a sound for this. Oh, here it is.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop your fucking lying.
Yeah, really. I mean, Kyrie Irving did this to himself. And he'll never admit it because what do we say? And I'll even throw Kanye West into this. That what's the first thing you need to admit before any problems get fixed?
You have a problem.
Okay. Well, Kyrie Irving is never going to admit he has a problem. So until he admits he has a problem, he's always going to blame everybody and everything before he blames himself. That's always going to happen. And guess what? Nike just said, we don't need this headache. We don't need this headache. And by the way, I saw a funny picture on Twitter of Nike's website. They had to cut the shoe prices in half to try to sell them out because they still have the inventory. And the other ironic thing, so Kyrie was the number 2 on for series of shoes. Who's number 1?
LeBron.
Bingo. That's all I got to say there. It's a bad situation. And by the way, his deal was supposed to go until October 1st, 2023. Oops.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Couple of little NFL notes, by the way. Recapping week 13. Obviously, we're not going to do the rapid rundown because
we got to do a Thursday pick, though.
We will join Johnny and Hank on their Football Friday once again this week. But just to recap some of the action from week 13. Pretty one-sided game on Thursday night between the Bills and Patriots, with the Bills blowing out 24-10. The Packers somehow managed to pull out a victory against the Bears.
Yeah.
Vikings pulling one out over the Jets, which I know has aggravated you, Nick Morgasen.
I mean, what were they, 7 or 8 times in the red zone and they didn't convert?
Correct. However, do you think Mike White is still playing well enough that you'd still keep him in?
Yeah, I would keep him in. You got to keep him in.
Even if you don't, you have to go to Flacco, right? You can't play Wilson again the rest of the season, can you?
Wilson's done for in my opinion, but I don't know what Robert Saleh is going to do. But Wilson's done for the season. Either you go to White or you go to Flacco.
Eagles blew out the Titans. Lions blew out the Jaguars. The Browns managed to pull off a victory over the Texans, although Deshaun looked a little sloppy. The rust was there. It was the defense that basically helped lead that team to a victory. And then the defense kind of gave up 14 points, which was kind of garbage anyway. But Commanders and Giants. Well, I mean, I'll take it, I guess.
Horrible timeout call by Dable in overtime.
Horrible timeout call. I disagree. Everyone's been pointing this out. Dable was a risk taker in week 1. Remember how everyone was going nuts when they beat the Titans in week 1?
Yes.
Everyone was going nuts about the risk that they took, the going for 2.
Do you remember what I said in week 1? You both got on me for it.
What?
That if it wasn't for the missed field goal, they would have lost.
But they still ended up taking risks and stuff. But my point, Nick, was that they're being really conservative now. I mean, running it with Danny Jones as the clock is ticking down in that first half. You're not telling me you don't want to take the chance and throw a pass so that way you have the lead going into the first half rather than a tie score? I mean, end of the first half rather than a tie score? And have more time for more plays?
It was just boneheaded play calling by Dable. I mean, and I don't know who said it. Either Johnny or Hank said it, that the play calling has been affecting them the last couple of weeks. The play call, I should say. Yeah.
And now I don't see them being the Eagles this week, which means now that Week 15 game against the Commanders, that's now flexed to the Sunday Night Football game. That's
big. It's huge.
The Giants first, by the way, in like 2 or 3 seasons. I think that game's must win now. That game is must win, and January 1st against the Colts. Those are must win games now.
Well, technically, the Eagles is a must win game too, but they're not going to win it.
They're not going to win it, which means they have to win against. They have to win again. They have to win against the Colts, and they have to win against the Commanders Week 15. So that way, you can at least finish with 9 wins on the season. Technically 9.5 because of the tie.
Right, and they'll go in as a wild card. Yeah,
well, I was gonna say you need that, and basically, I think you need the Niners to collapse to lock up a playoff spot.
I mean, you might have gotten your wish in that regards with Garoppolo being hurt,
right?
But
granted the Niners beat the Dolphins, and the Niners are still a pretty stellar team. Still have McCaffrey, still have Ayuk, but it's just going to be a matter of can Brock Purdy be the guy to
Mr. Irrelevant?
Yeah.
Who would have thought Mr. Irrelevant would have seen the field?
Seahawks beat the Rams. The Raiders beat the Chargers. The Chargers another. How much more can you do with Justin Herbert? I'm sorry. He can't be every single. We joke that LeBron is everything on an NBA team and the NBA for Justin Herbert cannot be that guy. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that as an insult to Justin Herbert. I mean, you got to help him.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. But I don't know. I look at these games from last week, and I'm like...
The Bengals beat the Chiefs. Guys, the Chiefs have not won in Cincinnati since like 2003. And they actually, before 2003, they last played the game there in 1987. And the Bengals won that game, too.
I'm afraid to know what our records were this week, because I think we got pummeled. Like, big time.
Decent at best. Let me say decent at best.
My lock got... I'm annoyed at the Chiefs right now.
I'm sorry that I had to be the bad guy, but I usurped your lead last week by like half a point, and I wanted to lock it, so I had to be the bad guy and pick the Browns.
Wait, what was the score of that game again?
27-14. That was a clear lock. That was -7.
Oh, God.
By the way, Colts Cowboys spanked the Colts on Sunday Night Football last week.
Holy shit. I didn't realize it ended in that score.
Yeah, well, I think there was a couple of defensive touchdowns.
Whoa. 54-19? Wow.
Yeah.
Is that scoregami?
I don't know. I'll look that up. And then Monday Night Football, Saints and Bucks. Leave too much time for Tom Brady on the clock and see what happens.
See, I think of 2 guys. Tom Brady is one, and then when Eli was playing fourth quarter, those were 2 guys you couldn't leave time to.
I'd say Pat Mahomes too.
Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson when he was in Seattle.
Let's see. Yes, that was scoregami.
Holy crap. That's one of the weirdest scores I've ever seen, 54-19.
Yep. All right. Also, I want to make note of the injury list because the injury list is pretty big. As we mentioned, Garoppolo. Trevor Lawrence also dealing with is it an ankle injury?
Who? Garoppolo?
Lawrence.
Oh, wait, who? Trevor Lawrence, you said?
Trevor Lawrence, Jaguars, yeah.
Ankle injury, I think.
Lamar injured himself during the game, MCL sprain. He's going to be out for a few weeks. Waddle's a little banged up. Von Miller looks like he'll be missing some time. And
by the way, there was an update also on Garoppolo. Apparently, it's not a broken foot.
Oh, it's not a broken. So he may get.
They said 7 weeks, which is the end of the season, essentially.
That's pushing it.
I'm not saying that he's going to come back, but we'll see.
All right, but I think that is going to do it for.
Wait, we got to do the Thursday game.
Oh yes, we do have to do the Thursday game. Let me look up our odds here.
It's Vegas. It's the Raiders at the Rams.
Raiders -6. Yeah, across the board, I see a Raiders -6.
Yeah.
So Raiders are a 6-point favorite against the Rams.
On the road.
On the road. And Nick, I'm going to be very honest with you. I might want to take that because the Rams also make mention. Now we're going to have the debut of Baker Mayfield, or is it too late? Is it like...
No, they said the plan is for him to get in for Thursday Night Football.
All right, so he is going to debut for Thursday Night Football for the Rams. And Nick, I think it's just too quick to develop a chemistry with these guys, especially when you've lost a lot of your big players like the Rams have had. The Raiders, granted they aren't great, but still have Derek Carr. Devontae Adams, still a hell of a player. Josh Jacobs, like we said before. I got to take the money on this one. I have to. It's not going to be a good game. It's not going to be a good game at all.
It's going to be ugly.
I don't know if I would even want to tune in, but I think you got to take the money here.
I mean, I think in this case, you're right. If this was earlier on in the year, I would have taken the Rams. Maybe they would have been a little bit healthier.
Or I would have at least said Rams. The Rams would have covered the spread even if they didn't win. But
I mean, if Stafford starts, this is a different game, I think.
Yeah, but one touchdown, no. At this one,
yeah, I'm going to go with you. I'd probably take the money on that.
All right. So obviously a couple of announcements before we go. Obviously, as we mentioned, Football Friday will be on with Johnny and Hank of Game On. But also should make mention, next week is the last episode of Empty the Bench for 2022.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is it. We are after
crazy.
next week, we do our off season. So the week of Christmas and New Year's, the 21st, 28th, you'll be seeing a couple of best of episodes to look back on 2022.
Yeah, part 1 is already in the books. I can tell you that. It looked good so far. First half of the year was a lot of crazy headline stories, the legal stuff. MLBPA and MLB going after the lockout. Deshaun Watson,
which stretches into part 2, as
right.
does the end. As I mentioned before, the summer of NBA drama.
Also, the Brittany Griner stuff going on. Also, there's a lot. Novak Djokovic with the refusing to get the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, COVID was still a thing in the first half of this year. So, yeah. That'll be good.
So make sure to tune in for that.
Also, we have our last stream of the year. Also, Jets Jaguars, which is a Thursday Night Football, I think on the 22nd.
Yep.
Hopefully the three of us will be there. Hopefully I'm not spun out somewhere, biting my nails or screaming when the Jets. But yes, Jets Jaguars Thursday Night Football watch along Thursday, December 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. Like our other streams, they've actually done well, so come and watch them, and we'll try our best, hopefully not to have a blowout. The last couple ones we did have been blowouts.
Yeah, it's been rough. But that's going to do it for this edition of Empty the Bench. I know, long episode, but we have made it through. So make sure, once again, to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to ring the notification bell so you get all the episodes for Empty the Bench, Beyond the Bench, Game On, Fruity Cereal, the MMA Outsiders. Big episode of the MMA Outsiders tomorrow, by the way, if you don't mind me doing a cheap plug. Two special guests as we talk about this James Krause story, which we wanted to talk about on this episode of Empty the Bench as a little crossover story, but obviously with all the drama in football and baseball, didn't have the time for it. So make sure to tune in tomorrow. Yeah.
I had said to you that we should try and do that story. We just didn't have everything all set up for it because it's a big story.
Yeah, but obviously we just also had way too much on the baseball front that was breaking to earlier. You saw on the scroll, by the way, all our social medias at ETB Sports, at ETB Network, our own personal social medias. Make sure you go follow them. Make sure especially to follow the network ones. And again, ring the notification bell to subscribe. So that way, not only do you get the information for us at Empty the Bench, but all the other shows about their final episodes, if they are going to do final episodes and their best of, or if they're not taking off any sort of special holiday episodes coming up.
Well, I can tell you off the bat. So we're doing a best of. BTB's doing a best of.
Fruity Cereal's going to do a holiday episode.
Fruity Cereal will do a holiday episode. Living Life's doing a holiday episode, and we'll have a best of the week after it for the year. What other shows are there? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
5 more minutes, Mom. I think
They're doing an early record for a Christmas episode.
I'll say they're going to do a Christmas episode, and I would assume the next week would be a New Year's episode.
Yeah, so I think they're going to do 2 episodes in a week to cover. Yes, you learn about some of the behind the curtain stuff on here. But,
so
yes.
It's the holiday season. It is the most wonderful time of the year, as they say. The end of football season coming to a head. Playoffs are coming up. Basketball and hockey, we're getting into the heat of things, and the winter meetings.
Well, I was going to say it is the most wonderful time of the year, except for Kyrie Irving.
And potentially Aaron Judge. Well, us as the Yankee fans with Aaron Judge.
I think all Aaron Judge fans are scrolling Twitter right now, just like, what is going on? Give me news!
Or if he has already signed, they are either in their bedrooms in the dark, crying their eyes out. or just so elated at this point.
Just ask Nick Federo. We'll get his reaction in next week's episode. The end of the year. Oh my God, that'd be hilarious at the end of the year. God. Yeah. All right. We should just end the episode now.
So let's end the episode. And gentlemen, you know what I always say as we end this episode? Well, we always end MMA Outsiders with B. Joe Piper. I would like to end this episode by saying this.
I had a feeling you were going to do that.
All right. So for Nick Morgasen, I'm Tom Albano. We'll see you next week for episode 165, the finale for 2022.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone.